I love the game Repo. This game is so much fun to play, and I also consider myself a connoisseur of ice cold, tasty, refreshing beverages like the ones you're seeing in the thumbnail. I'm talking about some ice cold beers, folks. We're talking about beer as well as the game Repo, a game that everybody should be playing if you haven't already, but you probably have played it a couple times if you're watching this video. That said, I decided to combine my two loves today, talking about Repo, talking about beer, as I attempt to answer the age-old question of which monster in Repo could drink the most beers in any situation. What is the situation here? It doesn't really matter. Who can pound the most beers? Of all the monsters in the game, that's where we're jumping in at. I'm going to run it through with a tier list style situation here, and we're just going to go monster by monster, folks. Now, this is all entirely my own opinion. I've been drinking myself, so I'm obviously going to give you that opinion. First-hand knowledge, baby. That's what we're talking about today. Jumping right in here, I've got them alphabetized here. We're starting with the Apex Predator. We've got the Duck. I guess I should have told you the tiers, but it's a fuck ton of beers, 10 to 12 beers, 4 to 6 beers, which is solid work, 2 beers, 0 beers, Rip Bozo. Don't try to be in that category. Now, the Duck. The whole point of the Duck is just to piss off the person that's playing the game. It tries to get in your way, it looks all cuddly and sweet, you tap it, and it turns freaking awful. And that's just the way it goes. Sometimes that happens. Now, that said, this Duck doesn't really scream like a beer drinker to me. The guy's the same size as a tall boy as is. Yeah, maybe he could put away one, but I don't see it. I don't see the potential. I guess maybe if he's aggroed and he's in a situation where he's the Apex Predator, he could pound a couple beers or maybe gnaw through a can, I guess. But I don't really see the man, putting up numbers like that. Unfortunately, we're not starting off with a banger. We're tossing the fella in the 0 beers Rip Bozo category. Unfortunately, that's just the way it goes, man. You gotta step up or show up if you want to drink beer with the big dogs. Next up, we've got Animal. Now, this thing is, fucking weird. I don't really know how else to say it. The dude has no pattern. He just scrambles around, flails all over, which honestly, kind of drunk guy habits. I mean, that's some experience right there if you want to think about that elusive club. I don't know that I'd consider him a functioning alcoholic, but I also don't know that I'd say he's going to house some beers like the rest of the guys on this list. But I feel like Animal can put away a couple of beers. I'm not going to sit here and say he can't. Some of the things on this list, like their mouth just physically, one, they don't have a mouth. Two, they physically couldn't drink out of a can. So a lot of them I'm just imagining a raw dog in the can itself and chomping it, getting the aluminum in the mouth. I'm kind of imagining that for Animal. I'm going to say he probably puts away some beers. He's kind of a bitch in the game, but overall, could be controversial here. I'm going to go 4 to 6 beers because I feel, he's an animal, man. You can't have a name like Animal and not be an animal. That's just the reality of the situation. I don't make the rules, but I do enforce them. Next up, we have the Banger, which fire name, not so fire in execution. Dudes kind of just explode themselves with a bunch of their boys, which I can respect. I mean, just getting tanked with your boys, I can totally get that. But I don't know that this is a beer drinker. This is not a beer drinker on the list among beer drinkers. There's a couple of these 3 smaller guys like the Gnome, the Duck, obviously the Banger. These guys aren't huge. This is a Skull. Where would you put any beer? I get it, if you're just trying to, toss it back, I get it. But, you're not really doing much in terms of intake with beers. I can't really see you really getting to the spot of, plus or minus 1 beer, to be honest with you. Unfortunately, the low tier on this list is going to get some work off the rip. We're putting the Banger next to the Duck. Now, I'm not going to be specific about where everybody sits yet. At the end of the video, we'll go back through and decide who drinks the least beer out of each category, who drinks the most, so on and so forth. Next up is Bowtie. This is a big hoss, folks. Kind of cut his head off. That's on me. Could have done better there. This is a beer drinker. You walk into a bar, you see this dude sitting there okay, we're going serious tonight. This isn't a joke. Now, is he an elite beer drinker? Is he a fuck ton type of beer drinker? To me, he screams that way. I'm going to be honest, that feels like the play here. He feels like a beer drinker among beer drinkers, but, he's just a big blob. Kind of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Kind of a cum monster. I don't really know what else to say about the dude, but he's got a bow tie, so he's kind of keeping it classy sometimes. The mouth is primed for 4 beer cans at a time. I feel like the dude's got the surface area to ingest some beers. I'm going to go ahead and toss him in the fuck ton category right now. Starting things off, 4 spots in, we've got a Banger off the rip. 10 to 12 beers and 2 beers, not getting a ton of love here yet, but I feel good about that being our first big dog drinker among drinkers. I mean, that is a good, that's a good representation of the list right there. Next up is Chef. This is a frog dude with 2 giant meat cleavers, and I've been playing a lot of Repo, like I said, for probably, I don't know, man, the last week or so, last 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I've been playing a lot of Repo. I don't think I've ever come across the frog guy. I'm going to be honest with you here. This dude is I've seen him in memes and videos and stuff, but I have not seen him at all. In my own experience. So conveniently, I'm going to say that, and then the actual video I put in the background is going to have 3 of these dudes. But that's neither here nor there. It's just about the beer. It's just about the size of the guy getting ready to drink a couple of ice-cold domestic lights. Now, with the chef, he is a frog, so the size is there. You know, he doesn't have, like, gigantic size, but he's, like, more of a, you know, like, he's above a shoebox. He's not, like, a tiny-ass frog that you'd expect, kind of like a duck or something like that. Those are awful size comparisons, by the way. But I see him as a beer drinker. I don't think he houses nearly as much beer as his animal, though. Even though he's a frog, like, that kind of feels a little controversial. But I feel like I'm going to slot him in as our first 2-beer kind of guy. You know, I don't think he's going to get wild. I don't think he's going to go crazy. But shit, man, I will say if you work in the food industry, you're probably, I mean, either have an Adderall addiction or you're just housing beers every night. So I don't know where we stand on that one. Moving on to the clown. This is everybody's, I'd say, favorite. But, you know, it's just somebody everybody knows. He's a freak, man. He's a freak. He gets after it. You know, he's not a guy that's going to take it easy. That said, where does he stand here? You know, he's between 2 categories for me. And I'm not going to be the guy that puts him in between half and half. You're either one thing or you're not. But as far as the clown goes, I think Bowtie would dust him. Like, if these 2 dudes walked into a bar, like, there might be such a talent gap between the 2 in terms of beer drinkers that, like, you might not even be boys. Like, if your boy just gets housed on, whatever, 8 beers while you're taking down 40, you never know what's going to happen there. I'm going to go ahead and slot the clown at 10 to 12 beers, but I need to see it in action. You know, I need to see how he gets down on a night. You know, we got to hit maybe a bar crawl and see how it goes. Hit a bar, see where he's at. What's the go-to order for the clown? I'm not sure. And since the jury's out there and I can't definitively say he drinks a fuck ton of beer, I'm going to put him at the 10 to 12 spot. That feels like a solid spot. The gnome. Dude, I fucking hate these things. They suck so much ass. They annoy the fuck out of me. They can't drink beer. Maybe they can drink a little more beer than these 2. We'll talk about that later. But, like, they suck. There's no reason they'd house 2 beers at all. They're fragile enough that beer hits their lips and they're literally shattering. Fuck this guy. He's going in the 0 beers category. That's just how we're going to keep moving on. Next up is the head man himself. That dude, you know, he's a beer guy, man. He's entirely ahead. He's quite literally ahead, and he's gigantic. He's not exactly like, you know, he's not just a small skull like the Banger. This is a big dog. I mean, this is a guy that looks like that one, like, ad back in the 2000s where you threw that little plastic disc around your house. That's kind of the size of this dude. Plastic disc. It's more like a metal disc, I guess. It's like a massive hula hoop sized frisbee. The head man drinks beer. He is the head man for a reason. I think he'd drink... See, this is where my list gets a little complex because he's not a 4 to 6 beer drinker. He could be a 10 to 12 beer drinker. I like that idea. He's got so much volume in there to store the liquid. Like, you know, his entire mouth is probably a 30 rack, if I'm being honest with you. Maybe even, you know, whatever. If you want to go get quaint and get a 12-pack of Trulies or something, like you could do that. But, like, I'm going to put him apprehensively in the fuck ton category because I think he's more of a 12 guy. Like, he'll finish off 12 and be cool with 2 or 3, you know, slurps, I guess. That's the worst adjective to use there. But I'm going to put him in a fuck ton category as a light end of fuck ton. So he's like a little fuck. That's bad. But anyways, this guy, the hidden. It's just blank space right here, folks. The guy is an asshole. He grabs you and runs around the map. His activity doesn't really scream beer drinker, dude. You can't just show up to a bar. Well, you know what? Now that I'm talking myself into it, I was going to say you can't show up to a bar and not talk to anybody, not do anything, and just run away. You definitely can do that. Go to a bar, get housed by yourself, then go home and not talk to anybody. That happens. That said, the Hidden's got this goofy-ass laugh, like sounds like a nerd. I don't see him housing that many beers. I also don't know what he looks like. That's a caveat. There's quite literally nothing to see. He's invisible, but it doesn't mean his stomach or beer appetite is. I'm going to comfortably put him in the 2 beers category, but I could also hear the argument for a 4 to 6 beers type approach for the boy. The Huntsman. This is a big one. Where does he follow? Because he's blind, not that keeps him from drinking beer at all, but he's kind of that old country boy style, like the man knows what he's doing. He's just here to shotgun and protect the place. Like he's just messing around with that. If he hears you, you're fucked. If he hears an ice cold beer from a mile away, he's tearing it up. I mean, we talk about shotgunning beers. This man might be the GOAT for that reason alone. This guy could have invented shotgunning beers back in his day, and he keeps that thing on him. He keeps the shotgun on him, man. I feel like this might be our first maybe looks might be deceiving type spot on the list. Does he drink a fuck ton of beers? Does he drink 12 beers? I mean, he's, the most humanoid type person on this list. Well, I guess it might not be true depending on how you look at it, but I'm going to go ahead. The Huntsman is tough because I know there's a cult following for the dude. Shout out to that guy. I'm going to put him in the 10 to 12 beers category, but I could easily hear the argument for a fuck ton, depending on how he persuades. The peeper. Guys, there's no way to frame this. He has no mouth. There is no way this dude could drink beer. He'd be basically dousing himself in beer every single night by just jumping in like a vat of beer. I guess he can't even jump. He doesn't have legs. He's just an eyeball. Where do you put beer? I guess you could ingest it through your eyes, but that wouldn't feel great. I'm going to put him in the 0 beers. I can't see the man, like, there's just no way to ingest beer. Unless you just want to, like, I don't know, Wu-Tang it to the eyeball. That feels like a rough idea. But anyways, I'm going to put him in the 0 beers category. But that one's kind of a give or take since there's just quite literally no mouth. Now, the Mentalist. I've coined him Howard the Alien. Shout out to Howard the Alien. The dude is razor thin, man. He's got a big dome, but he's razor thin. You can't store beer in the brain. As much as we want to say it's stored in the brain, I guess we don't really want to say that. But in reality, you can't store it up there. There is quite literally no space on this man. He is the ultimate lightweight. That said, I feel like he's more of a weed guy than he is a beer guy. Like, it feels like if he goes to a party, you know, he might just disappear for a little bit, smoke a blunt, and come back in, you know, and then start talking to you about some weird 40 playing shit. But, like, he didn't feel like a beer drinker. That said, you know, weed people surprise me. Sometimes they get down, they want to have 2 or 3 beers. I get that. I'm going to toss him in the 2 beers category, but that one I'm apprehensive about. He's just a wild card. He's a wild card because you don't know what his tolerance is. He's got no meat on the body like to store much of that, but I'm going to let that there. The Reaper. This is the Five Nights at Freddy's looking person. This is the one that I was kind of head scratching about, but she's got like knives for hands. Swords for hands, I should say. This is one that the council had to decide the fate here. The council has decided 4 to 6 beers solid work category. I'm with that. They're more than a 2 beer drinker, and you know, you see the size of the legs. It kind of looks like they have like broomsticks for legs, which might actually be the design, but I feel like there's just a little bit more craziness there than like some of our other thin people. Like, there's a little bit more of an animal inside that's like, all right, hey, I'm here to fuck shit up, and it feels like that's probably the play for the Reaper. So 4 to 6 beers, that's where you belong. Next up, the robe. Guys, I'll ask you, what's under the robe? What is under the robe? We need to know what is under the robe to decide how many beers he's drinking. If he's got a big-ass beer belly up there, he might be a 10 to 12 beer guy. If it's a skeleton, he's probably a 2 beers to 0 beers type of guy since you're dumping it basically on the floor because you have nowhere to put the beer. I mean, just out of matter of fact, like, you can't put him any higher than like 4 to 6 beers on this list without knowing what's going on there. But that said, it does feel like there's more mass to this dude than there is like the Shadow Child. We'll talk about them in a bit, but like, it's between 2 beers and 4 to 6 beers to me. I'm going to put him on the light end of 4 to 6 beers, just in the off chance they have like an actual body under there or just like a blob, whatever. The little baby thing, man, Rugrat. Another one with the frog. Like, I've never seen this ugly thing in my life. I don't think it's a crazy villain. Like, I don't think it's that bad to deal with. I think you can counter it pretty easy, but that's not what we're here to discuss. We're here to discuss its beer intake. Now, it's definitely underage. I don't know what the legal drinking age is for monsters, but I think it's probably crazy. Now, I mean, he's got 1 tooth, man. It doesn't necessarily say that all those other teeth haven't come in yet. It could be they all got knocked out in a bar fight. We don't know what this dude does in his free time, but I don't see him housing crazy amounts of beer. I'll probably put him in the 2 beers just based off the fact that he's basically a literal child. His name is Rugrat. Also, I feel like the frog would kick his ass if you're going head-to-head beer for beer, but I'll put him there. The Shadow Child, we talked about it. You're thin as hell. I mean, this is literally the Enderman from Minecraft. It doesn't feel like this is a beer drinker to me. Also, you just look away, and then you don't have to worry about him. If I don't have to look at you when I'm drinking a beer, I won't. But if I got to look at you to keep you around, then, you know, like, that feels like a lot of commitment. So I don't think they're exactly like, their specialty is not going to a bar. You know what I mean? They're more of a house party type person, which I can respect. But that doesn't bode well for the beer category. I won't say they can drink 0 beers. They are a child. Child is in the name. But I feel like if they're going to be anywhere, it'd be 2 beers because they do have a mouth. They got 6 hands. You could hold a beer in each hand. That said, I don't know that all those beers would get drank in one night. The Spewer. Dark horse candidate here. This is a beer guy. I mean, he spews and he throws up constantly. This is the OG of puking and rallying. This guy could house some beers. This guy could house some gin, some tequila, whatever you want to throw at this dude, but we're talking about beers. He's a party guy. He's here to have a good time. He's focused on the bag. He's focused on the fun ahead of him with the boys. Like, he's a dude that knows his space. You know what I mean? That said, he does throw up a bunch. A bunch. It matters on how many beers can you keep down, but I'm kind of judging this based off of how many beers can you keep down before throwing up. This isn't necessarily like, okay, I have 6 beers now, throw up, have 3 more beers now, throw up. Like, you know, the consistency matters at some point. You know, you can't just be hitting the pack punch machine every other round. Like, that's not the case. What we can do. So I'm going to put him comfortably. I don't know about comfortably. I'm going to do it. I'm going to say 10 to 12 beers. I feel like the spewer is going to house it. Plus, they have the funny voice. Like, when they latch onto somebody, they're kind of the life of the party. I'm good with that one. The Trudge is just a big-ass dude. Similar logic to Bowtie. I mean, it's a big fucking guy. You could house some beers. You could store some stuff in there. But I don't know. They're kind of an interesting one because I don't see them a ton in this game. Obviously, they are there. One of the hardest people to deal with in Repo, but I feel like they're probably a decent beer drinker. I think they'd be like more of an 8 to 10 beer type category, but that said, there's no category for that. I'm going to roll with 10 to 12. I think they saddle up. I think they're okay in there. They don't feel like a fuck ton of beer guy. Could they? Absolutely. Based on the same thing of like size matters for beer. Not for everybody, but it does matter when you're drinking beer. But I'm going to leave him there for now. The final thing is the Upscream. I, once again, absolutely hate this guy. He's the bane of my existence. He is so annoying. He sucks ass. Razor thin. You know, all he kind of does is sprint around and screams at you. Who's going to want to get this guy a beer? You know what I mean? Like, I guess he can get himself a beer, but like, he's going to scream at the outside of the can and just be pissed off. I don't see him as a beer drinker. I'm going to lay down the law there. I think he could be, sure. But I fucking hate this guy, so he finishes it off in the 0 beers Rip Bozo category. Now, let's rearrange this stuff, because some of these people aren't created equal. I don't think the duck could drink. I mean, let's be honest. The eye cannot drink any beer at all. It has no mouth. Of these 3 small guys, I feel like the gnome probably gets down the most. The duck is just a duck. I guess if we're banking the Apex Predator side coming out, maybe it's unfair. I do think the Upscream would drink more beer than all the little guys, though. It's just the way I feel about it. So I'll leave it there. I hate it, but I'll leave it there, whatever. Next category, 2 beer category. I'm going to leave the frickin' Frog there. They could even get a promotion potentially, but I like him where they're at there. The Rugrat thing is interesting. Man, I don't know what this guy looks like, man. The Hidden's hard. I'm going to put it ahead of the Shadow Chow. I think the Rugrat's good. Howard the Alien, I just don't have faith in you when push comes to shove here. I don't feel like you're going to secure yourself for the team. Next, we got Animal, the Reaper, and the Robe. I'm actually pretty okay with this. I do think I'm going to move Robe up above Reaper. Feels like more of a beer guy. But it depends on the day. You know, Reaper could go nuts and then just house like... They feel more like a shots person to me than a beer person. But I don't make the rules. I guess I do make the rules in this case. The 10 to 12 beer category is going to be an interesting one, folks. We've got 4 people across the board that have some variation. I think the Clown... I might have given it a little bit too much love in the initial ranking, so I'm going to move it down a little bit. The Trudge does feel like they are... You know, they're not the top of the top. Like, they're not going to outdrink their boys up here, but they're damn good against anybody else. Like, that's the case. I feel like the Huntsman, like, you know where you're at, man. You're going to go for 11 beers. You're going to be good. I'll leave the Clown there. The Spewer I'll also leave there because he does spew. And then the final 2, man. Does the Headman go over Bowtie? Does Bowtie go over Headman? I'm not going to try to build the anticipation here. The Bowtie wins, man. Bowtie is the beer drinker of this group. The guy houses beers. He's got a fan for a mouth. He can blow the beers away, probably suck them back towards his direction to open the fridge. I feel like Bowtie is the safe addition for that. And that is your list of which monsters can drink the most beer. If you appreciated the video, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a like, whatever the case is. This is my first video on the gaming channel. Appreciate all the love and support, and I'll talk to you guys soon.